Today we continue with the visit to the National Air and Space Museum. If you ever have the chance to go, you should definitely pay a visit. Take a good look around that entire area. This was on the morning of July 27th, 1993. It wasn't recently. On the morning of July 27th, 1993, His Holiness visited the National Air and Space Museum. Although the museum does not have ancient historical artifacts on display, unlike museums in Asia or Europe, such as in Italy, where they have items that are thousands of years old, including some very ancient relics displayed in certain Indian museums. Because the history of aerospace development is only about 100 years old, it exhibits the most advanced technological achievements of humankind. Indeed, while its history is relatively short compared to many long-standing histories, the cutting-edge technology it showcases is truly difficult to achieve anywhere else. In the exhibition hall you can see the 1903 Wright Flyer or Flyer 1, which we studied in our middle or primary school textbooks, piloted by the Wright brothers on their first flight. The actual aircraft is kept right there. There is also the first generation of supersonic research aircraft and the first American successful orbiting satellite. All of these are displayed inside, and they are all the original ones. The collection here includes various types of aircraft that have left a profound mark on human history, as well as rockets, missiles and spacecrafts, and various objects used by astronauts. These items have had a massive impact on human history. They are very important, including the airplanes, yes, and the rockets, missiles and so forth. They are all there on display. Furthermore, most of the exhibits are original, and even the few reproductions are in their actual sizes. Their dimensions are exactly the same. In the limited space of the exhibition hall, seeing all these real airplanes, engines and rockets and so on gives you a strong visual impact. I still have that feeling even now when I think about it. Wow, it's quite shocking and amazing. Once inside, it feels like it has a certain, I shouldn't say blessing, but thinking that in just a short 100 years of human history, we could truly achieve this. It's so impressive. That was the feeling. His Holiness specially observed the Apollo Lunar Module used in the first human moon landing. His Holiness was actually very interested. Some of our Khenpos and Khenmos seem to have no interest in anything besides the 5 great treatises. They start dozing off as soon as anything else is mentioned. But His Holiness was not like that. When radios first became available, it was said that it should be in his biography too, right? He would often take them apart and fiddle with them. He was very interested in many experiments and things like that. When there were new products from the outside, he would keep asking about their origins, how to use them, and what the principles behind them were. Even when we went to Hawaii, His Holiness asked about the sensor lights they had then. I didn't mention what His Holiness asked in that part, but in reality, he was interested in many new things. While accepting them, he would learn about the operation behind them, their historical background and so on. His Holiness was very interested. I sometimes think if one of our senior Khenpos went there, or even some of our current Khenpos, if they went there, some might say upon arriving, I'm not going. What is there to see? Let's go somewhere else and rest a bit. I'm too tired. They might say something like that. This is the part of the spacecraft that was used to land on the moon. The lunar module could only be used once. After descent, it would be discarded on the moon's surface. So what is exhibited in the museum is a spare module, Apollo Lunar Module LM2. There were several spare ones prepared at that time. Among those several modules, the actual Apollo 11 module that landed on the moon could only be left behind there. The landing module, meaning that the module at the time ascended through another method, and then the people could return. But there are various theories about this. So the one we saw back then, the one you are seeing here, is actually a backup. It is exactly the same as the original, but it is not the one left on the moon. The one from the moon has already been abandoned there. It is not the Apollo 11 lunar module Eagle that made the first moon landing in 1969. Next to the module, there was a television playing a documentary of the Apollo 11 moon landing on a loop. You can see it below. It's also available online now. It shows how they slowly reached the moon's surface back then and then collected moon rocks. I don't think it's mentioned in the text, but His Holiness kept touching the rocks. Those moon rocks were allowed to be touched. They were kept in a display case. However, some people nowadays claim that this was all an American lie and they never actually went. They say they just took some rocks from Earth and filmed it in some remote corner of the world. Why? Because there are many suspicious points and doubts. Indeed, what they say later makes some sense. They went once in 1969 and then, like a non-returner, they never went back. It is a bit suspicious. If it were truly possible to go, with half a century having passed since then, they should have been able to keep going. But there is only that one precedent of the first trip. After that first successful mission, logically, as technology becomes more advanced and certain techniques become more mature through continuous research, if they could retrieve a rock back in 1969, could take a stone, they should have much more by now. But America hasn't gone back since. Later it was said that Russia went as well. I'm not sure how Russia went, but similarly, many countries might say certain things just to save face, just say something. Now in 2013, China also began saying that by 2030, they must achieve certain goals. Chang'e 6 must reach its destination, then Chang'e 7 and Chang'e 8. They seem to be launching something every day. I'm not sure when they will truly land. Regardless, many countries are indeed remarkable in technology. If they really went, it's quite an achievement. But I've always wondered why America only went once and never went back again. Anyway, we watched that television for a long time. I recall it was nearly an hour. The whole process was filmed very well. But then again, Hollywood is also very good at filming things, so it's hard to say whether they actually went or not. His Holiness studied these things very seriously at the time. This epoch-making achievement, which has been recorded in the history of humankind, is known as one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Wasn't that what Neil Armstrong said? When he finally arrived, it was one small step for one man, but in reality, a giant leap for mankind. Yet this giant leap for mankind hasn't been repeated for over half a century. I don't know the reason why. Choje was very interested in this and learned in detail the whole process of the first moon landing. After seeing all this, it also broadened my horizons. I felt that they indeed possessed a very powerful scientific technology. The history of technological innovation was truly astonishing. You could put it that way. That was just one of the topics in between. Then we finished the teachings on placing Buddhahood within reach, right? In the placing Buddhahood within reach teachings, many photos of His Holiness were used. Those were taken there at that time and they turned out quite well. The part in the middle is finished, right? We already talked about yellow monastic robes on the green lawn. Next is the part about the Vice President of the US, right? A letter from the Vice President of the US. When His Holiness was giving teachings at the monastery back in July, earlier than that, he received a letter from US Vice President Al Gore, written on July 23, 1993. The content was roughly as follows. At that time there was specifically a letter from him, but we couldn't seem to find it later. We could only extract what was recorded in the original video. After His Holiness returned from the United States, as I wrote later, Tenzin Tulku and I went to Sertar County to find a driver named Munsel. He was quite good at technical operations. We collected all the materials and Tenzin Tulku provided the Tibetan narration. We brought a Han Chinese Dharma teacher who provided the Chinese narration. We worked for 4 consecutive days. In the end, we completed a 2 to 3 hour documentary. We got it done. But later, well, there were some materials back then. But after moving house later on, sometimes the materials couldn't be found. Now only the data from the videotapes remains. That is why the footage is so blurry. Some records of the letter's content remain from that time. He wrote that he was very happy to hear that His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche had come to the United States. Unfortunately, he had to participate in a conference that weekend, so he would not be in Washington on July 30th and 31st. It seems when the Ani spoke with them, he had originally intended to meet in person, but when His Holiness actually arrived in Washington, the Vice President happened to be away. I express my sincere regret for not being able to meet with H.H. Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche. However, I have arranged for my staff at the White House to receive Rinpoche for a visit. If there is anything else I can help with, please feel free to contact me. With best wishes, Al Gore. As you know, he later won the Nobel Prize. He is very famous for his research on global warming. He is quite well known. After His Holiness completed his teachings, we made a tour of the White House arranged by the Vice President. It was on July 30th, 1993, that His Holiness visited this place. The footage we are seeing now is of that visit. His Holiness visited the White House. This is the home and workplace of the President of the United States, the residence where national affairs are conducted. Everyone knows this. Therefore, only part of the premises is open to visitors. It seems you cannot go everywhere. It is only open to the public during specific times, and foreign citizens cannot just visit directly. It is still like this today. Back then, when we inquired, we learned that generally, perhaps for security, unless there are special arrangements, they don't usually open it freely. At that time, we were assisted by someone requested by Vice President Al Gore, a staff member named Karen Williams. She accompanied us into the White House. The White House consists of three major parts: the residence, the East Wing, and the West Wing. The East Wing contains rooms for banquets and events, while the West Wing houses administrative offices and the Oval Office. While from the outside there seem to be 3 levels, the residence actually has 6 levels and 132 rooms in total. The staff member acted as our tour guide, giving us a detailed description of each area. She was a very clear and eloquent speaker. Since she worked there all the time, she knew it well. She was also wearing our Tibetan Buddhist robes. She continued to give us a detailed tour, showing us some places that were not normally open to the public. What was amazing was that this staff member was an American Buddhist nun. She wore Tibetan monastic robes and worked at the White House year-round. It seemed quite remarkable. That was how things were then. She likely isn't there anymore. It's impossible to stay in one job for 30 years. Last year, around mid-December, after this book was finished, we sent it to her. She sent me a letter in reply. I have kept it in my diary. What did she say? I'll share it with you here. I just checked my diary. She said, "I have received the book. It's wonderful. Your work in compiling this information is truly a great undertaking. Thank you so much. And your descriptions are especially engaging and full of rich information. It's a great treasure. I will read it through carefully. Thank you." I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, but this Annie is still at that Dharma Center now. She was quite touched by A Journey to the West. When we sent out A Journey to the West, there were people from about 21 countries. The foreign language group provided me with the list. People from all 21 countries responded, including Nepal, India, Bhutan, Spain, and many other Western nations. We received responses from various people. I've included them all here, so I just wanted to show this to everyone. Regarding this Ani, later in the teachings, or perhaps earlier when we were giving classes there, His Holiness also offered her a khatag. His Holiness said, "Working there while wearing monastic robes is truly remarkable." He felt it was quite rare. Her practice in all aspects has been very good recently. She is a wonderful student of Kyabje Rinpoche. Kyabje Rinpoche used to joke with her often. I've forgotten her name, but Kyabje Rinpoche frequently... Actually, Kyabje Rinpoche and Akon Lamo had a very good relationship. There is a video of Kyabje Rinpoche inviting Yangthang Rinpoche to give teachings at Akon Lamo's center. There was a sense of openness, relaxation, and freedom. Everyone shared a kind of spiritual practice that wasn't like other places. In some centers, the atmosphere is very tense, and the relationships between people are just mediocre. They don't want to look at or speak to each other. It wasn't like that there. In a certain sense, the practitioners were very relaxed, free from personal afflictions or arguments. Everyone just ate, drank, and communicated naturally. There was no mutual worry or fear or constant defensiveness. How should I put it? In some of our centers, as soon as you walk in, the atmosphere, and even with just 2 or 3 people, that makes everyone feel very on edge. Under constant observation, people get stressed. The atmosphere and the looks in some places now are not in a very good state. I really liked their relaxed way. Between people, there was no mutual fear, suspicion, or worry, just a very relaxed feeling. Perhaps that was just my impression. That's how it was there. I'm not sure. Kyabje Rinpoche gave this Ani the nickname NBA, as if she were a player in the NBA. Kyabje Rinpoche would often call this ordained person Ani NBA. Ani is what we usually call nuns, Ani NBA. Kyabje Rinpoche would often say NBA Ani. On the walls of the White House hang portraits of past presidents and first ladies, along with various small photographs. Didn't Trump renovate his office entirely in gold? During his term, he used a lot of gold, but America is very technologically powerful. The other day, when Trump and Biden debated, they were both old men. They stood for an hour and a half, 90 minutes. The debate was a bit, well, let's not comment on that, but regardless, sometimes the world is quite amusing. Some people said that for two people in their 70s or 80s to find a job, they had to stand for such a long time. But on the other hand, each has their own characteristics. We don't really know the specifics. Overall, it seemed quite good. Whether in the corridors or the rooms, the atmosphere of history and culture was everywhere. There were many profound works of art. On display were exquisite china and glassware, exquisite porcelain and glassware, as well as gold and silver tableware. Whoever becomes president can redecorate the interior in their own style. They are allowed to do that. The arrangements, including the curtains and the desks, everything is customized according to their preference. That is how they do things. Since Bill Clinton was the incumbent president, there were many photos and videos of him and his wife outside at the time. We can talk about this more later. When we reached New York, His Holiness took a photo with a figure of Clinton. It wasn't the real person. I originally thought of putting it in Memoirs of a Journey to the West last year, but some suggested people might misunderstand, so we didn't include it. I've kept it at home all this time. Even though it wasn't the real Clinton, the atmosphere we had was very funny. His Holiness thought, "Oh, that's fine. It's okay to pretend a bit." So we took that photo. Then in the afternoon we went to the Chinese embassy. The ambassador who received us was very amiable. My impression of him was that he was very gentle. I hadn't been in a place to speak Chinese for a long time. Being able to say a few words to him gave me a sense of achievement. In New York, I was also asked to interpret. Usually my skills were only needed for carrying bags or taking photos, otherwise I felt quite useless. We reported on our itinerary in the United States, the dates of entry and return, and so on. He also asked about some related details. Then we went back to Arkhon Lamo Center. We visited DC for the day and then returned. It seems there were no classes that evening, right? All right, that is all for today.
Kirgana jirano chupai chupun solen droa droa bandar badna sadar bandar badna sadar bandar badna sadar